Hello, and welcome along to Susty Talk, Edie's new series of video interviews put together to keep our audience of sustainability professionals and energy professionals feeling connective and optimistic during this period of lockdown, not just in the UK, but beyond as well. I'm sure you know me on this series by now, but for those who don't, I'm Edie's content editor, Matt Mace. And joining me for this episode of Susty Talk, we have Ezgi Barcenas, the Global Vice President of Sustainability at global brewer AB InBev, a company whose products I've been getting very familiar with during my spare time in the lockdown so far. Ezgi, whereabouts are you joining me from this evening?
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me. I'm joining from New York today. It's great to see you again.
Great, and as we always start on this series, it'd be great to get a bit of information about how lockdown has been for you so far. What's it kind of like in New York in general, and how have you kind of adapted to a more virtual way of working?
Yeah, so I'm working out of a two-bedroom apartment with two kids under age 5. So that's been an adjustment. But in terms of working, at ABI, we operate across 6 zones around the world in nearly 50 countries. So if you think about it, we've got a large team of teams around the world, and we're very used to virtual ways of working. So that hasn't really changed. I think during this pandemic, what's really happened and what I've been really proud of is how our teams have shown the agility to deliver local impact, from donation of masks and emergency relief water to creating digital platforms to support bars and restaurants. So it's fair to say that our teams feel even more connected and inspired than ever before. And on a personal note, I've been privileged and lucky enough, I guess, to leverage my public health background, helping decipher some of the data and projections that we're seeing out there. We're all getting a fire hose of information and trying to all figure out what it means for our business and for our communities. So really trying to make use of my background in exposure epidemiology and risk assessment. An opportunity I thought I would never have, going into sustainability, and now hopefully I'm a little bit more helpful to the company than working just on sustainability projects.
And on the sustainability front, how has the lockdown kind of impacted that at ABI? Has it kind of led to anything being paused, or has actually, as we've seen with some organizations, sustainability kind of becomes much more integral as a result?
Yeah, I would say, pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges for societies, governments, and businesses alike. We are lucky in the sense that our purpose of bringing people together for a better world remains unwavering, even when we're at a distance, even when friends and family can't get together. In terms of sustainability, our strategy is deeply rooted in our business and our community needs. So our commitments are, stronger than ever. They remain the same. And there is a reason for that. Beer is a natural product. We buy, make, sell over 90% of our products locally. So we're incredibly dependent on healthy environments, thriving communities, and that's what drives our strategy and efforts. And that's why the focus remains local still.
And we've seen a lot of talk in the UK about this kind of new normal that's going to emerge post-pandemic. And no one really knows what it looks like, but there's a lot of talks and a lot of calls to action for it to be very much focused on kind of green stimulus to prop up the economy. A lot of focus on renewables, a lot of focus on low carbon tech, which I know is something AB InBev have worked on, especially on the renewables front. How do you feel that businesses are going to have to change going forward, whatever this kind of new normal looks like, in relation to not just how they interact with society, but the environment as well?
Yeah, we're all trying to figure that out. I think as everyone is saying now, we're seeing and we're going to see an acceleration of trends. So when you think about environment, when you think about deglobalization, I think that's going to be catalyzed even further. The importance of local supply chains and resilient supply chains is going to be even more critical. Collaboration will be at the forefront, and what we're seeing now, which is hugely inspiring, is how public-private partnerships are taking shape very quickly, and it's giving us further reasons to believe that in working together we can solve our shared challenges, right? So I think in terms of new normal, in a way, what's old is new again. We're focusing on resilience. We're focusing on investing in horizon scanning because we're trying to figure out what the future looks like and how we can be a part of it, how we can contribute to it. So I think businesses, moving forward, they're going to have to be ready for deglobalization. They're going to have to invest in sustainability even more because it's going to be an even bigger competitive advantage. And the way I think about it is, people usually think that there's a trade-off between resilience and efficiency, but they're not in direct opposition, right? So most organizations and companies and even governments, they would tend to focus on efficiency because you can set clear targets, you can follow metrics through, whereas resilience requires long-term thinking. So I think now we're going to see a growing understanding and investment in resilience efforts, in efforts to make communities and supply chains more resilient. So, we must not lose the momentum and continue to tackle the existing and emerging problems together, I would say.
And I imagine on the supply chain front, it probably very much depends on what it is that you'll source amongst the supply chain. But it sounds like you have the belief that kind of switch to more localized supply chains where an end user company like AB InBev can have much more oversight and control, and access to data is going to be a kind of key way to be able to boost that resiliency going forward. Would you say that? I mean, for some, they have no choice but to kind of source from these big global supply chains that span multiple continents, but that localized aspect will give businesses much more control going forward.
Yes, I think yes, for sure. This is what we're doing in agricultural development as well. For example, we're working with commercial farmers, but we're also working with tens of thousands of smallholder farmers around the world, mainly in Africa and India. And, we've been investing in them and making sure that they're skilled, they're connected, they're financially empowered, they've got access to management tools to make better decisions, to be more productive, and to improve their livelihood. So, if we can continue to invest in these as an industry or as the private sector, I think we're going to see really greater momentum and greater kind of prosperity locally as well. And that's what we've been really doing, working in partnership with our economist teams, with our procurement teams, and our farmers locally.
And one of the things I always enjoy looking into and writing about when AB InBev and if you have a new kind of sustainability announcement is the kind of global accelerator that you've got in place all around kind of commercializing or at least supporting startups with potentially game-changing solutions to sustainable issues. How firstly I suppose how has Accelerator gone? I think the last time I really kind of wrote about it in depth was probably 2019 at the start of the year as well. So how's that gone? And then it'd be great to touch on whether what's going to change in this kind of post-pandemic world.
Yeah, so we had we launched our 100 plus sustainability accelerator last summer, and apologies, 2018 summer, time flies. And we had our first cohort already graduated. So we had 21 companies, 21 startups from 12 countries around the world that came and joined us and piloted their products. And most of these companies we already converted into commercial long-term contracts that we're working with them with, and we're helping them scale their innovations, their solutions. So that's been really exciting. We had a lot of learnings along the way, a lot of reasons to believe that we're on the right track and we need to continue to invest in innovation. Last year in October, we actually launched our second set of applications, and we received over 1,200 applications from 30 countries this time, actually over 30 countries around the world, compared to 650 applications the year before. So we nearly doubled the number of applications we've received. So it was really exciting to see the growing interest in the program, and the startups and the founders selecting ABI as a partner to come in and pilot their solutions. So last year, the first year we had 21 companies. Right now we've got 17 companies in the second cohort that we're really excited about. Some of them are starting their piloting now. Some of them are a little bit delayed because of COVID-19. But we're really excited in taking some of those learnings and building even on top of them. So we've got some really exciting startups in the process.
And there's a few examples in the business here of companies like yourself doing that. I know Unilever have one, H&M, they all have these kind of incubators, for lack of a better term, around innovation. And I think innovation in particular was starting to get a lot of traction. People were whether the solutions would just get market ready or people would more willing to take a leap of faith. It was really starting to build up, and you were seeing examples of businesses trialing these within their own operations or own value chains. Post-pandemic, do you think focus on innovation may slow down because it is still a kind of risky area, or do you think actually people will be more willing to kind of experiment with potentially game-changing solutions?
I think it's the latter. I think people are going to double down on innovation and trying out new solutions, new ways of working, because the world around us is changing, right? So this is not a moment to take a pause on some of these initiatives or efforts. It's actually a moment for us to accelerate at the same pace as the trends are being accelerated around us. So I think, the UN came out with this report, I believe it was 2018, when they estimated that we're going to need $5 to $7 trillion in innovation and investment to help achieve the SDGs by 2030. That's still a very real number. That's still the investment required to lift people out of poverty, to find, solutions to transition to a low carbon economy, to solve so many shared challenges around the world. So I think we're going to double down on these things, and companies like us having the ability to actually take a solution and implement it, pilot it, so that you can see firsthand the results. I think that's what's going to help accelerate, accelerate change. Because if I give you an example, for example, BankQ, which was a startup, is in our first cohort. Which is a blockchain, SMS-based service, that uses blockchain technology, a platform that helps farmers create a digital financial identity. We piloted them in Zambia and Uganda, and then we expanded them into India, and now we're looking into markets across South America. So again, that gives us an ability to pilot in one market, but as soon as we see a solution is working, we can actually expand them geographically as well, and increase our capabilities, increase resources that are available to our farmers, who now can have digital payments. They can reduce their cash transactions and therefore reduce their safety challenges, and lowering the risk for them, but also enabling them to open a bank account or have a digital financial identity. So that was one program that we were able to grow, and now building on top of that platform, in our second cohort, we actually have this other startup named Oko from Israel that allows us to roll out a weather index crop insurance for farmers in Uganda. So the same farmers that are becoming part of the BankQ platform in the first year of the startup are now going through a pilot phase with Oko, so that they can have access to crop insurance where they didn't have it before. So again, taking those learnings, creating the enabling platforms and partnerships so that we can continue to build on them, I think is going to be incredibly critical moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of talk about this green recovery and the wider kind of decarbonisation journey. I mean, in the UK, we've obviously got our net zero emissions target for 2050. And there's been a lot of discussions already about how that needs to be a just transition, and that it can't, leave certain demographics or areas of society behind, especially those kind of operating on the breadline, for example. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you guys, AB InBev, are working a lot to improve the economic resiliency of the kind of wholesale farmers that you source from as well. I'm guessing that's going to be a key focus of businesses as part of that resiliency piece.
Yes, absolutely. And sharing our learnings as well. Last year, we launched this platform, our Eclipse platform, that allows us to create faster collaborations with our supply chains. So around the world, in many markets, in the US, in Mexico and Brazil, we had face-to-face workshops with our suppliers to identify where we have shared challenges and gaps, and how can we co-innovate and co-design the future or future products in our value chain, in our ingredients, our packaging materials, etc. So I think these are things that, by sharing learnings, by setting shared targets, I think we're going to be able to accelerate, not just the economic resilience, but also some of the other technological resilience of the companies as well. I mean, right now we're working with our suppliers to share with them what we've learned on our RE100 journey, so that they can also understand where renewables are competitive, where they play a role, where the enabling regulatory frameworks are needed around the world, and where we're seeing them appear, so that they can go and invest at the same level as we're investing in renewables, for example.
Great stuff. And Ezgi, then just looking forward ahead, I mean, it feels weird to say we're almost halfway through the year, but we almost are. That's how weird 2020's been so far. But what's kind of on your to-do list for this year? And I appreciate that is subject to wild change depending on what happens with the lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, we're powering through, I would say. Our, 2025 sustainability goals, our set of public commitments, remain the same. So we're trying to deliver against those commitments, but we're also trying to understand the current context, the local context of what's happening on the ground, how our supply chains, our communities, our entire value chain really is being impacted, right? The bars and restaurants that we work with, so that we can actually create the right programs for them and create that local impact where it's needed most. So I would say that's our number one priority, helping the business, helping our communities move forward and come out of this even more resilient and stronger than before.
Good stuff. And the final question then is one we've asked everyone that's kind of appeared on this series, and it's more of a personal one, and just their advice on just keeping their own kind of mental health in check and making sure that they can kind of separate work life from home life when you are working from home. What advice do you have on that front?
Well, I think that's the toughest question you've asked me so far. I would say just knowing that there are good days and bad days. That's what I keep telling my 5-year-old son as well, that, today you were a little bit more bored than yesterday, but, tomorrow we'll do something more fun, right? Just knowing that there will be ups and downs and that we're all in this together, and that, we're going to come out even more connected as a family. And even more connected as a team of teams around the world within the company, I think is something that gives us hope and, really allows us to focus on a shared goal.
No, that's a nice optimistic viewpoint to finish on, Ezgi. Thank you so much for being a guest on this new series. Appreciate things are extremely busy right now. So thank you for kind of stepping in and letting me speak to you during this period.
Thank you so much for your time.
Great. And for everyone else, I'll undoubtedly see you all again soon for our next episode of Susty Talk. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay positive, and keep up the Susty Talk.